Morning everyone. This week finds me on my local Hacche Moor fishery, where I'm lucky enough to get to bailiff, and even luckier to get to fish when there's a free space between lake bookings. This week I'm with John Flewin on the newly opened, well I say newly, it's a few months now, open Jake's Lake. A few fish have been out recently, so there's a good chance we're going to have a few ourselves, so let's see how we get on.
Well, rods have not been long out really, and the fish have started to be active in the last hour. Started filming a bit of bubbling, and yeah, we're already into the first fish, which is a great start. Obviously got to land it, got a bit of weed around it unfortunately. Can't do anything with it at all. Just swimming around in circles all by itself. I don't think it's one of these £5 toys though, is it?
It's certainly not, mate.
That'll do. Off the mark. Well, what a start down at Jake's Lake. So the rods haven't been out very long at all. Me and Mr. Pinn were just sat back. We've done the intro, sat back, had a bag of crisps, and this one absolutely ripped off. We've been talking to some of the lads that have fished here before, and they say there's a lot of bites early morning into afternoon, so we thought that potentially it wasn't on the cards. And yeah, the old power curve D-rig absolutely ripped off. So we'll show you where you were fishing, just down a set of pads here, and it's absolutely ripped off. I'm going to slip this back, get the rod back out, and there is plenty of time for hopefully plenty more of these stunning Hacche Moor fish.
The rod has just screamed off. I don't know what the time is, but gone pretty quick, but it's just gone under a little bit of floating weed. There he goes. He's out now. Right, so here's the turn up for the books. Didn't do a close on the camera last night because we were pretty convinced that, well, one of the spots had been showing over it all evening, and we had a feeling it was going to go off, and this lovely little mid-double, very, very leathery looking creature absolutely screamed off. You probably saw the fight just now. It's a proper little scrapper for its size, but another lovely little Hacche Moor Jake's Lake fish. Happy days. This is a fine start to the morning. One on the washing line, and my turn on the rod sees one on the left hand margin rod that old Flew dog put out yesterday. It's just coming out from under this floating weed. Excellent stuff. Well, we've had one first light, and it would appear that this left hand spot, the last one was on the washing line over there, but this left hand spot has just produced its third fish. So just as we were getting the camera ready for the one on the washing line, this one's just tore off, and it's very lightly hooked. Lovely. Bingo.
Well, jolly good morning to you. You didn't actually see this one go into the net because it was just as the sunlight was coming up, and it was on one of Mr. Pinn's expertly placed washing lines. As we've alluded to, we are rod sharing, and that's just purely for the fact that we're working together, and we think that really does work, and it certainly means that we get an equal amount of fish and an equal amount of effort and reward goes in. So as the sunlight was coming up, this one rattled off, got this into the net, and we were just waiting for a little bit of rain to pass, and the other rod went for Mr. Pinn on his turn. But yeah, another sort of low 20 Hacche Moor stunner. So I'm going to slip it back, and I'm going to get on with the rest of today. But yeah, slip it back and we're going to show you what Mr. Pinn has to offer.
So, fish number 4, me and Flewin are taking it in turns on the rods, and it was my turn to have this common off the left hand rod. He's just had one off the washing line that I put out yesterday, and this one absolutely tore off. Lovely little fight. Hopefully there's plenty more to come, and we'll take you through the rigs and techniques in a moment. Bingo! So today you'll find us down at Hacche on Jake's Lake, which is probably one of the smaller lakes on the complex, and because of that we do need to be quiet when we're not stomping around in between putting rods out and walking around with cameras and setting up filming spots and things like that. So we do need to be quiet in between, and when you are quiet those fish will come back. To help that, I use the washing line technique pretty much all the time. The reason being is just the lack of line in the water, really. I mean, on 2 rods here I've got no more than 4 rod lengths of line in the water. That line's ghost dragonfly, which you're not going to see anyway. I've waded them all out and placed them by hand. I've stirred up a bit of dust. All of that dust is going to settle on a line that is in the water, and the lead and the rig. And in this instance I've been using small 12mm pop-ups, which are just sitting just up nicely. Not too high, not too low, and it's worked. We've had 1 fish so far on here. They have come back to those spots because in their eyes there's nothing there, and even on the 3 rods that we've got that aren't washing line behind us, there's probably, I don't know, 9 rod lengths of line on the 3 rods. So there's barely any lines in the water, and we just keep it as quiet as possible between all the stomping around that we're having to do. And they do come onto the bait, and as it's proved, we've had 4 fish already with 40 hours to go, so hopefully there'll be a few more. Right, it's been a bit quiet for a few hours now, so we're going to have a little change around. John's moved a couple of his our rods around in this shallower area. My 2 washing lines, which are kind of monopolising this one right hand end of the lake. We only need one there really, so I'm going to take one of those and we're going to go start over in this far corner. We've seen a few shows over there, so we're just going to give that a go for tonight at least, and just see if we can't monopolise on some of those shows that we've been seeing. There is a plateau, kind of middle-ish lake really, but we can't really get to it because of the island that we've got in front of us. So the next nearest thing is another plateau in the far corner over there. So hopefully with the move that we're about to make, only the 2 rods for me, but John's shifted. No, you've only done 2 as well, haven't you, John? So we've left the one that's been producing the most fish. We're going to leave the washing line that's produced a fish and get a couple of washing lines right over in that far corner and see what happens. Here's to another night.
Right, so while Steve's sorting out his 3rd rod finally after 24 hours, which was a wise move, we made that decision to leave that area of lake empty of lines and let them, if they got caught anywhere else, they could move into there and then we would be able to catch on to them today, which hopefully will be the plan. So there's been nothing through the day, so we've had those rain clouds have moved off, sun's come out, and certainly the fish I think have gone to ground a little bit. But as Steve said, I have moved one of my rods only a little bit, just further up the bank, just to get a little bit more line out the way. I pushed the rig further onto the spot because we did see fish milking up there this morning and nothing happened. So I've pushed it a little further into the spot, but then moved the line lay so it comes straight off the spot and onto the bank. So we will see what that brings, but it certainly seems to be that afternoon into evening period through the night, and then the first light, and then that afternoon period goes dead. So I'm going to try and make something happen, but in the meantime we've made a bit of noise, put a bit more bait out, move the rods around. So fingers crossed as the afternoon turns into evening, we are blessed.
What are you saying, the flu dog?
Well, absolute ripper from nowhere.
It's been quiet for a while, hasn't it?
So this is that rod that I showed you that I moved. Just move that line lay ever so slightly to get it out of the way of the pad. Oh. Mate, that was everywhere.
No, he's coming through. There he comes.
Mate, that's that one from the back there. It was all the way over there at one point.
I know. Tore off, mate. There he is, he's kicking out the back now. That's it.
Try and walk him back down up the way he moves.
You ain't giving up yet, mate.
Absolute fighters.
Linear.
Come on. Come on.
Nice one, bud.
What up?
Gosh.
Oh yes, mate, that's a cool one as well.
Bingo.
Well, there we are. Proof is not in the pudding about taking a bit of time to consider the spots, the line lay on these little intimate ponds. So about an hour ago I spoke to you on camera saying that I moved that spot a little bit further into the spot and moved the line lay out of the spot. And this 22.5 pound awesome zip linear is the reward. A proper tussle, as you probably saw from the footage. These fish are pumped. But yeah, they're certainly on the bait now. When we got here, mixed up a big box of bait, and Pinn said that'll be enough for the whole session. Well, that's all gone already in the first 24 hours. They really are on the munch. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to slip this back, get the rod back out. I'm going to talk through that D-rig that has done the damage to me for so many years. And now with those PB components, you see the hook holes are devastating, and these fish certainly aren't getting off. What a cool carp. Right, so as we said, after we slip that fish back, we're going to show you the sort of the rig that I'm using on my set of rods. But as I said, we are rod sharing, and what that's allowed us to do is sort of play around with our own rigs and obviously build confidence, because I had a fish on Steve's rig earlier. So as long as you're confident in your rigs, I think you will go very far. And a rig that I've got the utmost confidence in when fishing hard, firm bottoms where I know that I'm going to be presented well has got to be the D-rig. For a very long time I used it simply just by whipping it on to a hook, and that hook of choice for me right now obviously is that Power Curve. We've spoken about it 1,000 times on anything I've done. I just adore the hook, razor sharp. It's not a one fish hook, it lasts, never had any problems with one whatsoever. And what I've started to do is actually use quite an elongated piece of shrink tube, and the way that I sort of kick that up and out allows the line to exit almost like a liner, but without reducing anything of that gape. You know, you've still got a huge gape, but that sort of extra length allows that rig, I think, to flip and turn. As you've seen from those hook holes or those fish we've had, they've been nailed. When you're in situations where you know that you need that hook to stay firm, as in all situations, those little kickers really are fantastic. And just by using a bit of shrink tube, I can manipulate it to exactly the right angle. And then a wafter. Now, why do I use a wafter? So this time of year now, the fish have spawned, they've had a few weeks rest, they're back on the food. And as you've seen by us moving around, we really have given them food. This sort of fishy, milky, creamy muckiness of fish goo, essentially, is what they've got on. And interestingly enough, I've actually fished the one that top rod on a sort of lighter coloured wafter. Now, the reason for that is sort of a couple of reasons. A, it's not going to be visual like a bright yellow or bright orange, but contrasting against that red bait, that sort of yellowy, creamy corn colour really does stand out. And not only that, after a couple of hours, those red baits, they do wash out a bit. So it's sort of a tonal a tonal colour change, as opposed to it being a bright fluoro. And the way that sits is, as you can imagine, the hook and everything lays flat on the floor. The fluorocarbon, absolute phenomenal, lays flat straight every single time, the old ghost butterfly. And then at the sort of end where it attaches to the main line, I have a quick change swivel, and I just pull a tiny little piece of an anti-tangle sleeve over, and what that creates is sort of that hinge point at the end of your rig. So you know that that's got a load of room to flick, drop itself away, and as far as I'm concerned, that's going to be as further away from the lead, nice and straight, and it certainly has stood the test of time. So reliable products, Power Curves, Ghost Butterfly for me, tied in deadly form, has put a lot of fish on the bank already for us, and no doubt will continue to do over the next 2 days.
So here we are with fish number 6 on the great Flew Dog Pindar rod share. Got 3 spots going now. So those 6 fish have been in the first 24 hours, so we're hoping for a few more to cap off the session. Lovely times, as they say.
Well, my biggest fish of the trip, 23 pound. We're not going to keep it out of the water too long, because we've got something special to show you. Literally, it's gone wild. 3 rods all gone, of which 2 of them was just a recast. Rod hadn't been back out for a minute, literally undoing the net to get this one up. And Mr. Pinn, his turn on the rods, and he really has got something really cool to show you. So Slip this one back. Another Jake's Lake crazy carp. Happy days.
This has to be the coolest fish of the trip so far. Absolute little stunner. Off, well, we literally just had one. It was John's turn to land the fish. We were literally in the middle of photographing this one and the same rod went off. I thought John was winding me up when he said it was going off, but here it is. Feast your eyes on that little beauty. And I think there's plenty more to come where this one came from. Happy days. So the first 24 hours is over, and I think we can safely say it was pretty action-packed. We've had 8 fish now, and we're only just coming into bite time, so I think we'll be seeing you again in the night, or if not in the next hour or so. We had a manic half hour about, I don't know, an hour ago, John, where fish were just being weighed and alarms were going off, and I think it's going to happen again. I think we've got about 40 hours to go, I'd say, roughly. So I think you'll be seeing us again. So happy days. Let's see what the night brings.
Right, well, good morning. And it's, to be honest, I was expecting to have seen you through the night. But I think, to be honest, the amount of fish we had out that set of pads yesterday afternoon moved them off a little bit. And it's no surprise that this fish came from one of Mr. Pinn's rods, way out over the back where those fish I think had possibly retreated in the night after, quite frankly, getting a bit of a tonkin. But this is one of Mr. Pinn's Ronnies on there, and yet again with this rod share you've got to trust the other person's kit, and as far as I'm concerned the old PB products standing true whosever's rods they are on. But yeah, cool little character, and we will slip this back, and Mr. Pinn is on the rods. The weather is very different, and I'm sure that by this afternoon there will be some more in the net. Happy days.
Well, that was a session of 2 halves. We're now in the throes of a chaotic pack up. The first half of this session went swimmingly. I mean, we were getting fish constantly in the first 24 hours, and we could do no wrong. But then the rains came and it just went completely dead for the last 24 hours. But we're not complaining. We've had a good session. Hopefully you've learnt a few things from us. Some of the tips aren't so new, but they're there nonetheless, and hopefully you'll find them useful. Now we've just got to wend our way home, and hopefully the rains are going to hold off.